I want to start with a statistic that I came across for this deep dive, and honestly, it's a little unsettling.
Oh, yeah.
A Duke University study suggested that up to 40%, 40 of the actions you take every single day aren't actually decisions, they're not choices.
Which is a terrifying thought when you really sit with it for a second.
It is. It means for like half my waking life, the conscious thinking part of me isn't really driving the car.
Mm-hmm. You're just a passenger.
I'm just a passenger. And the car is being driven by these invisible scripts we call habits. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are looking at Charles Duhigg's absolute classic, The Power of Habit.
And I'm so glad we're tackling this one because I think habit is a word that gets thrown around so casually that it's lost its edge.
Yeah.
We think of them as just things we do often.
Right, like brushing your teeth.
Exactly. Or biting your nails. But Duhigg's work shows us that habits are actually these complex neurological loops. They are literally the software that runs our lives.
And the main idea here isn't just build good habits, it's much deeper. It's that if you don't understand the code, the actual mechanics of how these loops work, you are just destined to fail every time you try to change. We've all been there, right? I'm definitely going to the gym tomorrow.
It's called the 3-day pattern.
The 3-day pattern. You stick to it for 3 days, relying on pure willpower. And then on day 4, you just crash. And the story we tell ourselves is, I'm weak or I'm lazy.
Which is completely the wrong diagnosis.
Yeah.
Duhigg argues that willpower is an exhaustible resource. It's like a muscle. It gets tired. So if your whole strategy for life is to just like white-knuckle your way through every decision, you're going to run out of gas by 2:00 p.m. The brain doesn't want to use willpower. It wants to use the basal ganglia.
Okay, let's get a little technical here for a second because this biological split is it's crucial. You've got the prefrontal cortex and then you've got the basal ganglia. Who are these two characters in our head?
So think of the prefrontal cortex as the CEO. It's right behind your forehead. It handles all the complex stuff, long-term planning, decision-making, morality.
The executive functions.
Right. It's smart, but it burns a ton of energy. It's expensive to run. Then deep in the center of the brain, you have the basal ganglia. This is an ancient sort of golf ball-sized piece of tissue. It's primal. All it does is store patterns.
So the prefrontal cortex is the CEO making the big strategic calls, and the basal ganglia is, what, middle management?
It's more like an incredibly efficient automation script. I mean, when the basal ganglia takes over, the prefrontal cortex literally goes to sleep. Researchers have seen this in rats.
Really?
Yeah, when a rat runs a maze it knows by heart, its brain activity just drops. It completely stops thinking.
Because thinking is expensive.
Exactly. The brain is an energy hoarding machine. So if it can offload a task to the basal ganglia, it will. And that's all a habit is. The brain switching to autopilot to save fuel.
So when I find myself scrolling Instagram for 20 minutes and I don't even remember unlocking my phone, that's my basal ganglia running a script while my CEO brain is taking a nap.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that script follows a very specific structure. This is the core of Duhigg's work. He calls it the habit loop.
Right.
Most people think a habit is just the behavior, the scrolling, the smoking, whatever. But that's just one part.
The routine.
Right. But the loop has 3 main parts. Or, actually, if we want to be really accurate to the science in the book, it's more like a 4-part engine. You start with the cue.
The trigger?
Yep. Then, and this is the part people always miss, there's a craving. The cue triggers a neurological craving for the reward. Then comes the routine, the behavior itself, and finally, the reward.
Let's break this down with a real example because I think we need to see the mechanics. Let's stick with the phone.
Okay, good one. So the cue isn't just the phone is sitting there. The cue is usually internal. It's a feeling of boredom or a tiny spike of anxiety.
A lull in conversation.
Exactly. That feeling is the trigger.
And the brain immediately goes, I know what fixes this feeling.
Right, that's the craving. The brain anticipates the dopamine hit before you've even touched the device. It craves that little hit of distraction. So the routine fires. You unlock the phone, you open the app, and the reward is that momentary relief from boredom.
And here's the really scary part. If you do that loop enough times, the cue and the reward become like neurologically welded together.
They fuse. Eventually, just feeling bored triggers the dopamine anticipation. So if you don't unlock your phone, you actually feel a kind of withdrawal. That's why just putting the phone away can feel physically uncomfortable. You are fighting a craving, not just a behavior.
Okay, so if we can't just stop because the loop is hardwired, what do we do? This is where Duhigg introduces his golden rule of habit change. And I have to be honest, when I first read it, I was skeptical. It sounded like a cheat code that shouldn't work.
It does sound a little counterintuitive. The rule is, you cannot extinguish a bad habit, you can only change it.
Which means what, exactly?
It means you have to keep the old cue, and you have to deliver the old reward. You only change the routine in the middle. You're basically hacking the software, keeping the input and the output the same, but rewriting the code in between.
But does that really work? Let's take a harder example, like stress eating. It's 3 p.m., I'm tired at work, and I go grab a cookie. If I replace that cookie with, I don't know, an apple, my brain is going to know the difference. It's not the same reward.
That is the critical point. You have to diagnose what the reward actually is. This is where most people fail. They assume the reward is the sugar in the cookie. But is it?
I mean, the sugar is definitely part of it.
Maybe. But Duhigg suggests you have to experiment. Is the reward the sugar? Or is it the change of scenery just getting up from your desk? Is it the social interaction of chatting with a coworker in the kitchen? Or is it just a 5-minute distraction from a hard task?
I see. So if the reward I'm actually craving is distraction or socializing, then eating an apple at my desk is never going to work.
Exactly. It fails because the reward doesn't match the craving. If your craving is for social connection, the new routine needs to be, say, walk over to a friend's desk and chat for 5 minutes. That gives you the social hit. If the craving is just a dip in energy, maybe it is an apple or a coffee, you have to be a scientist about your own cravings.
That requires a level of self-awareness that I think most of us just don't practice. We just feel bad, and then we want to feel good.
And that's why Duhigg breaks down the cues into 5 categories. If you're trying to diagnose a bad habit, he says you need to write these down when the urge hits. Almost every habitual cue is one of these: location, time, emotional state, other people, or the immediately preceding action.
So if I'm trying to figure out my 3 p.m. cookie habit, I should track those 5 things every time I get the urge.
Yep. For a few days, just write it down. Where am I? What time is it? Who is around? How do I feel? You might realize, oh, it's not hunger. I eat cookies every day at 3:50 p.m. right after my boring weekly status meeting because I feel drained and lonely.
And once you know the real cue and the real craving, you can engineer the fix.
Precisely. You stop fighting the symptom and you start addressing the actual cause.
Okay, so that covers fixing the bad stuff. But I want to pivot to building the good stuff, because the book talks about this idea of keystone habits. And this is where it feels like you can get a kind of 2-for-1 deal on life improvement.
Oh, it's more like a 10-for-1 deal.
Yeah.
Keystone habits are these specific behaviors that just spark a massive chain reaction. They're the lead domino.
And the classic example is exercise, right?
Exercise is the big one. The data he presents is fascinating. When people start habitually exercising, even just once a week, they unknowingly start changing other, totally unrelated patterns.
Like what?
They start using their credit cards less, they procrastinate less at work, they do their dishes earlier, they're more patient with their families.
Wait a minute, they use their credit cards less. How does doing a squat have anything to do with my financial responsibility?
It comes down to what psychologists call small wins. A keystone habit provides a small, tangible sense of victory. It proves to you that you have agency over your own life. When you finish a workout, you get a dopamine hit and, more importantly, a self-image boost. You start to think, I am a person who does what they say they're going to do.
And that new identity starts to bleed over into other areas.
It creates a new self-narrative. If you identify as someone who is disciplined, then leaving dishes in the sink or buying stuff you can't afford starts to feel inconsistent with that new identity. And the brain hates inconsistency, so it aligns your other behaviors to match the new self-image.
This reminds me of that make your bed speech that went viral from Admiral McRaven.
It's the exact same principle. It's not that the bed itself matters. It's that by 8:01 a.m., you've already accomplished a task, you have a small win. It sets the tone for the neural pathways for the rest of the day.
So instead of trying to overhaul my entire life on January 1st, diet, money, sleep, everything, I should just focus on one single keystone habit?
Yes. The big mistake people make is trying to change 5 loops at once. That just crashes the system. Pick one exercise, daily planning, making the bed, tracking what you eat, and just nail that. Let the ripple effect handle the rest.
Now, this concept isn't just for individuals. This is where the deep dive takes a turn into the corporate world, and honestly, this was the most gripping part of the book for me. The story of Alcoa.
Oh, the Paul O'Neill story. It's legendary in business schools for a reason.
So set the scene for us. It's 1987. Alcoa, the aluminum company of America, is kind of a mess. They bring in this new CEO, Paul O'Neill, to calm down the investors. They hold this big event in a fancy New York ballroom. All the Wall Street heavy hitters are there.
And they're all expecting the usual speech, right? We're going to cut costs, we're going to boost synergies, we're going to increase shareholder value, the standard corporate buzzwords.
And O'Neill gets on stage and says, "What?"
He says, I'm not going to talk to you about profits. I want to talk to you about safety. And he tells them his #1 goal is to make Alcoa the safest company in America. 0 injuries.
And the room just goes silent.
Absolute panic. I mean, the book describes investors literally running to the payphones. This was the 80s, calling their brokers and screaming, "Sell Alcoa! The new CEO is a hippie. He's lost his mind." They thought he was going to destroy the company.
But they were very wrong.
Spectacularly wrong. Within a year of that speech, Alcoa's profits hit a record high. By the time O'Neill retired, the company's stock was up 500%.
How? How does focusing on safety goggles and wet floors lead to massive profit margins?
Because it was an organizational keystone habit, O'Neill knew he couldn't just order people to be more efficient. Efficiency is vague. But safety is binary. You either got hurt or you didn't.
So it forced a complete change in their process.
Think about it. If an injury happens because a machine malfunctions, well, to fix the safety issue, you first have to fix the maintenance schedule. If a worker gets splashed with molten aluminum, you have to fix the training process and the communication protocols. By relentlessly chasing 0 injuries, O'Neill forced the entire company to optimize its operations from the ground up.
So by fixing the safety loop, they inadvertently fixed the quality loop and the efficiency loop at the same time.
Exactly. The safety habit was the Trojan horse for excellence. It changed the culture from hide your mistakes to highlight every mistake immediately so we can learn and so no one gets hurt. That cultural shift is what drove the profits.
It's such a powerful lesson. Sometimes the direct path to the goal like make more money isn't the most effective one. You have to pull a lever that seems completely unrelated.
You have to find the keystone.
But I want to play devil's advocate for a second here. We've talked about all the mechanics, the loop, cues, rewards, keystones. It all sounds very logical, almost like we're just robots that need a bit of reprogramming.
Which is a fair criticism. We aren't robots.
Exactly. We have emotions, we have stress, we have days where logic just goes out the window. I can know all this theory, but if my life suddenly falls apart, I'm probably going to go for that drink or that donut.
Yeah.
What happens then?
That is the missing link that Duhigg identifies in the final part of the book. The mechanics of habit change work great when life is calm. But when high stress hits, the prefrontal cortex, the CEO, it tends to go offline. And we revert to our oldest, deepest programming.
So how do you prevent that relapse? What's the key?
The answer, according to the research he cites, is belief.
That sounds a little, I don't know, a little soft for such a data-driven book.
It does, but he defines it neurologically. You have to genuinely believe that change is possible, that you can cope with the stress without the old routine. And here's the crucial finding. It is incredibly hard to generate that belief on your own. But it is much, much easier to generate it in a group.
Is this why organizations like Alcoholics Anonymous are so effective?
Yes. Duhigg spends a lot of time analyzing AA. Scientifically, AA works because it leverages the group effect. When you're sitting in a room and you see someone else who has stayed sober for 10 years, your brain registers a new possibility. It validates that the change is actually possible for someone like you.
So it's not just about having an accountability partner to call you out. It's about being able to borrow their belief when yours runs out.
That's it, exactly. When your belief wavers, the group holds the belief for you. It turns out that community isn't just a nice to have. It's a core mechanism for neurological change. It helps the prefrontal cortex stay online when it wants to quit.
That's a really profound place to land. We started this whole conversation talking about biological loops and efficient brains, but it turns out the ultimate hack is other people.
We're social creatures. Our habits are often tied to our tribes. If you want to change your habits, sometimes the most effective thing you can do is change your tribe. Or at least find a new one. Find a group of people where the behavior you want is the normal behavior.
You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
It's a cliche for a reason. Neurologically, it holds up.
So let's bring this all home. We've covered a lot. The loop, the cues, keystones, Alcoa, belief. If someone listening wants to start literally today, what is the first step?
Don't start with the solution. Start with the diagnosis. Okay? Spend the next 3 days just being a detective of your own life. Pick that one bad habit you really hate. The scrolling, the snacking, the procrastinating. Don't even try to stop it yet. Just watch it.
Catch the cue. Is it boredom? Is it stress? Is it 3:00 p.m.?
Right. Identify the cue,
Eh.
and then identify the true reward. Once you have those two coordinates, then you can start experimenting with a new routine.
And for building the good habits.
Pick one keystone, just one, and make it so small you can't fail. If you want to exercise, don't commit to a marathon. Commit to just putting on your running shoes every morning. That's the win.
Build the identity first.
And the results will follow the identity.
There's a final idea in the book that I think is the perfect way to wrap this up. It's about destiny. We like to think of destiny as this grand story written in the stars. But Duhigg argues that your destiny is essentially just the sum total of your habits.
It's simple math, really. Your habits determine your days. Your days determine your years. And your years determine your life.
It's empowering and also a little bit terrifying. But now we have the manual. Now we know how the machine works.
Exactly. So the question we'll leave you with is this. Are you running your habits, or are your habits running you? Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.